Recently, North Korea held a demonstration with their latest military equipment, including their latest tank, dubbed M2020, since it was revealed or entered service in 2020. I did make a video on the tank back then in 2020, but it has almost been 4 years since then, and more details have come out and some changes to the tank have been made. As I said in my old video, the tank does appear to be a completely different design than other North Korean tanks, since all North Korean tanks, up until this one, have basically been upgrades of the older models, mainly Chonma-ho, which is basically a North Korean T-62. For some reason, some people still are not sure if this tank has an autoloader or not. No, it doesn't. It has a manual loader, a guy loading the shells. They went away from the old Soviet style with the gunner and commander sitting on the left and the loader sitting on the right, to the NATO style where loader sits on the left and gunner and commander on the right. We can also see a big periscope on the loader's hatch. Now, back when it was revealed, the sights of both gunner and commander were closed, so we couldn't really be sure if the tank has thermals or not. But now they are open and we can see a separation in the sights, just like with other modern tanks, confirming that this tank indeed does have thermal sights for both gunner and commander. Pretty neat, but unfortunately, the information about this tank being classified, we have no idea what kind of thermals it actually has. The protection of this tank appears to have been improved with explosive reactive armor, which appears to be a copy or inspired by the Chinese explosive reactive armor, since they look very similar. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Chinese just straight up sold it to them. But again, we don't have the details. That being said, the coverage of this ERA is rather poor to say the least. It is obvious that the ERA was not planned for this tank whatsoever, but it seems that since designing it, they realized that the protection is not really adequate enough for modern standards, and to try to improve it, they decided to install ERA on it. But since the turret design isn't really the best for placing ERA, they had to place it in such a bad manner. Biggest obstacle to a proper placement are definitely the active protection system launchers, which are embedded into the armor of the tank. Not really the best idea in my opinion, since if the launchers are expanded or if it doesn't properly intercept the threat, it can result into being a weak spot and quite a big one in the armor of the tank. It is always best to place the APS launchers outside of the main armor of the tank, but I digress. Good thing is that at least we have footage of this active protection system working. That's right, North Korea actually released a video of the trials of this active protection system, where it successfully managed to intercept an RPG rocket. So why would they add ERA to the tank if they have a working hard kill active protection system? Well, it is very likely that the APS can only intercept rockets or missiles. Kinetic energy projectiles like the APF-SES would most likely be ignored by the APS, so this ERA is possibly made to affect kinetic energy projectiles, and if it is similar to the Chinese one, then it most likely can. On top of the hard kill active protection system, the tank also has laser warning receivers, which are supposed to warn the crew when the tank is lased by a rangefinder or laser guided munitions. Now, one thing I noticed when it comes to the protection is that the side protection got modified. Back when it was revealed, the tank had very thin side skirts that had bolts on them. I speculated back then that they could be something like the Contact 5 side ERA panels we saw on the Russian tanks, where bolts would be holding the explosive panels. But now the side armor is much thicker, most definitely a new type of ERA, which is much more effective than the old one, which should give the tank better side protection and protection from the threats coming in from the frontal arc. The roof of the turret and the upper front plate appear to have the same type of armor on them, could either be some ERA or some composite panels. I say this because both have bolts on them, suggesting that they are holding different pieces of armor separately. On the upper front plate, it would mean that one big portion is lower than the rest, since there would need to be room for the ERA or composite to be placed, because of the thickness. And we can see that the area left and right of the driver, Kim Jong-un in this case, yes, that is him, doesn't have these bolts on it, which means that the armor should look something like this. But this is me just speculating. Take this with a grain of salt. And because of these bolts, we can tell that there is composite armor in the lower front plate too, since bolts do not cover a small part of the front and the upper plate. This composite armor does not appear to be very thick, so who knows what it could actually stop. Maybe it's designed to stop RPG rockets or something, I don't know, but it is pretty thin. The firepower probably comprises of the 125mm main gun. which is not made to fire ATGMs like the Russian ones, since this tank has ATGM launchers placed on the right side of the turret. The launchers have also been slightly redesigned since the last time we saw the tank, most likely in order to enable extra ERA placement on the side of the turret. The ammunition of the tank is most definitely stored in the rear turret bustle, but since we have no images of the top of the tank, it is hard to tell if they have blowout panels or not. In one of the pictures, the tank does appear to have blowout panels, but the picture was taken from quite a distance and is not the best quality, so it is very hard to tell for sure. Other than all of that, I don't think there is much else to cover. The information about the tank is classified, and since it is North Korea, it is extra classified. We don't know what kind of engine the tank has, what kind of transmission, what kind of actual fire control system or anything, so there isn't really much more I can say, unfortunately. But if we do get more details about the tank in the future, I will try to cover them. But for now, that would be all. If you like my content, you can support me on Patreon. Thanks a lot for watching, and I will see you all in the next video. Have a nice day.